When we started, we said, what's the hardest thing to do in UAE? One is to get licensed. The second thing is to partner with Emirates Airlines. Let's do both.
Armin, I'm interested to start by understanding what you learned from your tenure at Oracle that you're then able to bring into the startup that we'll get into in this conversation.
That's a very good question because I learned a lot there. What was great about Oracle, it was a very good educational journey for me. Oracle invests a lot in their people when it comes to trainings. I also got the opportunity to work on very large projects. Working in those large projects, we got to learn how to break the large projects down into manageable bits and pieces. And that's what really helps me with Qashio and running a startup, kind of understanding that doesn't matter how large you are or how big your budgets are, you always have to take things in bite sizes. So to be able to utilize those processes that I learned at Oracle really have helped us being very organized at Qashio from day one.
Yeah, okay. And we just mentioned before we started recording that the company is started in 2022 and it's already at 97 people, going to be 100 by Monday. So you're increasing headcount over the weekend. So I'm interested there. You touched on Oracle and how important it was to invest in the people and build that culture out. How have you in the last 3 or 3.5 years really instilled that as a way of building a culture in the company?
So what we do, and that was a decision we made very early on. Actually, the first person I hired was HR. It's very rare for a startup to do that, just because I understood very early on, or everybody understands that people are important. So why not make sure that you have the infrastructure for being able to hire people and then develop people, that is in place from the start. What we did or still do is we allow the team members to kind of decide where they want to take their career. And if that matches into the roadmap that we have as an organization, we also ask them to find trainings that they can take. And then we pay for those trainings. What we also do, we invest a lot in what we call tribal knowledge sharing, which is basically what you have learned while you work at Qashio. And how you can share that information with your colleagues, and also a lot of cross-pollination learning. So different departments teaching other departments what their pain points are and what they do well. That gives a direction of a sales team not asking the tech team for too many features. It helps the customer success team to not ask the sales team to be too accurate when they sell, because we also need to discover what our clients want to be able to build that to move forward. So that is also very important.
I love that. From my own corporate experience, a few years ago, I worked in a company where it was very well, you were supposed to go and work with other teams, and they wanted to build a culture that didn't have these divides between teams, because then you don't put, like you say, you don't put too much pressure on the dev team, or you understand that UX are limited by capacity and you're all sort of friends. I like the phrase that business is not a family, but it should operate in a sense of empathy with one another. You mentioned before we started recording that you're born and raised in Stockholm, Sweden. You spent time in the US, in both San Diego and in New York, and then you went to Dublin to work at Oracle before you came to the UAE. How do you think that worldly a worldly view and the traveling around not just different countries but different cultures has helped you take Qashio from where it was to where it is in only 3 years?
Tremendously. I also would like to add that at Oracle here in Dubai, I got the opportunity to work with a lot of Southeast Asian companies and also African countries. So learning that diversity, the cultural diversity, while your team is international, has been absolutely the biggest golden nugget, because I think we did a quiz on Friday and we have 48 nationalities amongst 97 people. Some people have like 3 nationalities, but to be able to work with different cultures, but especially here in Dubai and in this region where it's international, allows you to kind of understand the perception that people have of what you do. And it teaches you how to communicate with different cultures as well. So if you look at, let's say, the Western European culture, you have to be much softer in the approach, kind of include them, let them believe that they make the decision. While when you work with the Middle Eastern or the South Asian cultures, believe it or not, you can be far more direct in what it is that you expect, because they are more interested in delivering the correct result than to have an opinion about every result.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I guess also there must be different, if you're working in that many cultures, it must be interesting to look at even how long the workday is or how many hours they're willing to put in. Even the UK versus the US, the amount of days off you get per year for vacation, but also for, we'd call them bank holidays, but I guess they're just public holidays. And the UAE is all very different. So I guess that's something that you've had to learn and overcome as well.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting thing, especially when it's multicultural. So, of course, the public holidays here are based on the Islamic calendar. While we do have people from different cultures, we have implemented something we call Celebration Day to allow those who celebrate Diwali to be able to take Diwali off in addition to the public holidays, the Christians to be able to take Christmas off. So that nobody really feels left behind. And then for those who celebrate Eid and the Muslim holidays, they get their birthday off, so they don't get less days off. But for us, it's really important people get to rest. I absolutely dislike when people try to take 4 or 5 weeks off at once, because it impacts your work so much. You're away for long, and then you have to work so hard for such a long period of time without resting. So we try to promote that you at least take 2 weeks off, or at least 10 days off twice a year, just to get the opportunity to rest. And normally when you do that, the performance goes up. And you talked about working hours at Qashio, and this is one of the downsides that we have, is that we don't do remote work, and we do expect everybody to pull the full hours in. I find it positive. Most people enjoy it because what we do is innovative. We really innovate things. We are spearheading so many different areas. The team, the motivation, and the results that come out of the performance motivates people to put that extra hour in. And I would definitely not attribute that to any culture. I would attribute that to personal ambition. What we try to do when we hire people is to ensure that there's one word that I say. If you don't say that word when you have your last interview with me, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to get the job. And that is impact. If you don't want to make impact, because we're at that stage where we do make impact every day, then Cash is not the right place for you.
I love it. I think so many businesses in Dubai certainly are so people focused, and like to your point there, so impact driven. You talked about motivation. The last company I worked for before I started my business 3 years ago, we had unlimited holiday. You could take as much holiday as you want. But what actually happened, because we're ambitious individuals, there's 5,000 people in the company, you actually take less days off than you would have if you had 30 or 35 or whatever. But you work so much harder and you have so much more motivation because you know the company are trying to look after you. If you want to take a week off for your mum's birthday or whatever, they don't mind. But it's up to you how you want to drive forward. For someone who's listening to this, how would you describe Qashio as a business now?
If I would compare Qashio to any other business that I have worked for or with, I believe we're very innovative. And we, believe it or not, really admit when we do make mistakes. We try to promote highlighting the mistakes that you do, so we can learn from them. I know it's very cliche to say it. We have two types of mistakes. We call it sloppy mistakes. Those are those mistakes that could easily be avoided if you paid attention. Those are forbidden. And then there are mistakes that you kind of couldn't foresee, but you had to take the risk to see what happens. And most of those risks that we have taken, even though there was a mistake in the result, there was more positives that came out of it. So from that point of view, I would like to say that it is a place that whoever wants to take risk, we will take risks with you. Besides that, I do think we are a very fast-growing organization in general. We like to have fun. We joke a lot in the office. We try to find nicknames for every individual. Half of the people, I don't know what their real name is, but we all have nicknames for each other. And it's actually a quite fun place to work.
It sounds very endearing to have a nickname for everyone. That's amazing. And how would you describe what the business does to people who haven't heard of it?
So it started off as an expense management solution. Basically, what we started off was to issue corporate cards, provide a platform for businesses to issue their own business corporate cards for various departments with controls based on merchant or expense categories, and then integrate that into their accounting systems. What we've grown into is much more of a financial software today, with some, let's call it traditional banking applications. We don't provide the banking ourselves. We partner with other banks that we then build a front end layer on top of. And then we do have a loyalty program as well. So the right behavior gets rewarded with Qashio points that then can be converted into Emirates Skywards Miles or Avios and Shukran points and Air France, KLM.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I read that Qashio has a very unique rewards program in the space, and I'm interested in how it came about and also how it's affected user adoption.
So how it came about, it's a very long story, but when we started, we said, what's the hardest thing to do in UAE? One is to get licensed. The second thing is to partner with Emirates Airlines. Let's do both. So we never thought we would be able to partner with Emirates. So we reached out to Emirates, and they were very forthcoming, allowed us to have very constructive conversations over a very long period of time. And when we were the right size for Emirates to be able to partner with us, then we partnered together. And in terms of user adoption, it increased a lot. Obviously, it works great as an acquisition tool. You can imagine a person who might have a co-branded credit card, have a credit limit, and most people don't utilize the maximum credit limit every month. While a business, they spend a lot of money on a lot of things, so you can earn a lot more miles. So business owners absolutely love using Qashio. And then also what we do from time to time is that when we release a new feature, or if we understand that a company want to adopt certain behaviors within their employees, we reward them with additional Qashio points just to drive behavior, a form of instant gratification for people to utilize the system better.
What do you think is the biggest pain that the businesses who use Qashio are feeling before they find the business and its solution?
That's a very difficult question to answer. In general, the reason why I started Qashio to start with, I used to be a finance director. I just got promoted to CFO and suggested that we as a company should start our own expense management tool. And the reason for that was we struggled with corporate cards in general. We had 3 or 4 corporate cards for a company with more than 1,000 employees. And the credit limit would expire or finish very quickly. One time we had a card that expired, took 2 months to get the new card. So it slowed down our online marketing. And then we had issues with PROs and how the payment for the PROs were being reconciled. So in summary, just to give access and visibility is the pain point that most companies don't understand that they can have until they get to see Qashio. The second thing is that after using Qashio, they really, really realize how well organized their businesses end up being in terms of financials. You get visibility in a single platform for every spend that you can do on a card, and soon you will also be able to do bank transactions and remittances as well. So it gives you a very unique single source of truth that reconciles everything automatically. Kind of boring jargon, but it's good.
But it makes sense, doesn't it? I am interested because you've had a varied career in finance and in tech, and you mentioned there that you went from finance director, you touched on working at Oracle, up to CFO, right? So it's the highest you can go in a business in the finance side of things. What was the exact moment, or can you highlight an exact moment where you went, I'm going to create Qashio and it's going to solve the problem that I've had throughout my career on the finance side?
That's a funny story, and it needs to be censored. So I'll do the PG version of.
Go on, yeah.
So when I worked at Oracle, I used to sell into CFOs. I used to be a salesperson. I used to sell ERP systems. That's where I started in Oracle.
What's ERP stand for? If people don't know what it is,
it's Enterprise Resource Planning. So it's the financial system that businesses use. Everything from budgeting to accounting to procurement in a single platform. Quite expensive stuff that takes sometimes 2-3 years to roll out. So I did that for some very large organizations. And one of the things that everybody had a problem with in this region and in the more developing countries rather than the Western countries was to reconcile their financial data from the banks together with the accounting system. So they struggled to have a single source of truth. Now, fast forwarding a couple of years, I started another business that I sold, and then I worked with Delivery Hero for a couple of years in the M&A department, and part of that I was managing budgets to just naturally becoming a finance director myself. It was kind of an organic growth, going from one side of the table to the other side of the table. And throughout the whole journey, the pain point of reconciling financial data was always the same. And it was one day the pain was so significant, so I used Google and looked like how do companies solve for this outside of UAE, and I found that there's this new solution called expense management, which started around 2019 to take footing just before the pandemic, and pandemic accelerated the whole concept. And that's when I thought, you know what, I should start doing something similar in UAE. And I think there was a lot of people that thought the same thing. Around the same time we started, must have been 12 or 13 startups all that started at the same time. Today, I would say we have 2 competitors. So a lot of companies, did not manage to go through the full journey. But it became the flavor of the month for about a couple of years.
I think it's so interesting. I love when you have a moment where you go, this is an issue I'm facing. No one's solving it. So let me take that idea and implement it, because obviously ideas are worthless. The implementation is what we're really going for. But what's interesting, I think, to people listening, is that building fintech is incredibly tough, right? Most people fail. What are the big challenges that you've faced, and how would you put into words that you've overcome them, so people listening can think about doing the same if they're in a situation like you might have been?
I think that's a very hard question to answer, but still very good. What we did to solve for it, because I really don't feel we have had too many challenges. We have had great support, both from authorities, from banks, clients, every type of stakeholder that we've had early on from the beginning. And the way that we solved for it was to set an objective, present the objective, and how that objective also aligns with the objective of the stakeholders, and presented it that way. And that way you also got quite a lot of input from those stakeholders. So a bank would explain, we tried to do something similar, but we failed because of 1, 2, 3. So you would look at their failures and try to avoid them to the greatest extent, or do things differently. So working things backwards have really worked well for us. Another thing with fintechs that I've seen is oftentimes it's passion projects. I don't want to say that Qashio did not start as a passion project, but if you don't look at the commercial aspect of your solution, because the margins in fintechs are so slim, and you need to have a massive scale to be able to start earning money. If you don't look at how you're going to survive commercially, it doesn't matter how great your system or your solution is, you will never be able to survive long enough to be able to get the right size in place.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's probably something that most people don't or haven't thought about, right? It's one of those things. I'm told that you've been offered lucrative deals to move your HQ away from Dubai. What is it about the UAE that keeps you here?
I mean, first of all, the environment in Dubai specifically is unique. The multiculturalism that you have here allows you to acquire global knowledge in a single city. I believe you have very few places in the world you can, experience the same. Maybe Singapore, Silicon Valley, New York, London for sure. These are the places that come to my mind. And I find Dubai being a unique place for you to be allowed to learn. The second part is that even though other places have offered a nice capital up front, what Dubai have offered is the ability to scale sustainably. So if you're rushing into becoming a unicorn, maybe it would have been a better decision to move the HQ elsewhere. But we are looking at Qashio as a long-term player. And we believe that Dubai is the place for us to do that. Access to talent, safety, and also the fact that we have gotten a very strong network. So clarity in regulation and direction through our stakeholders and supporters is also very important for us.
And you've got events like this, right? Well, some of the biggest startup events in the world to help you there. How was the decision made to focus on the UK and Europe as natural expansions over places like Saudi Arabia?
We looked at Saudi Arabia and Europe and UK all at the same time. At first, we were planning to become a MENA player, and we realized that as good as it is to become a local powerhouse, despite the fact that there is nobody else to compete with you, might not always be the right decision. First of all, what we had to look at is the flow of money. So instead of looking at just market size and population, Egypt would be a natural growth place, but they haven't matured enough when it comes to certain type of regulations, while Europe and UK is very mature. So we looked at, if we are going to make UAE and maybe Saudi at a later stage our key markets to start with, because these are our home markets. We need to look at how money flows between these countries and other countries. And we got to see that countries in EU, not the ones that you might think about, and also UK, are great partners of this region. So if we can establish ourselves over there, we can build something international within a single ecosystem, similar to how an HSBC have done it in the banking world. We would want to do the same thing when it comes to the fintech world.
I see. I think that's it's so interesting the way you've thought about it. What do you think the business looks like in the next 5 years as you do expand? I'm sure there's lots of regulations and legislation that you'll have to work through, but what does it look like, or maybe what does the world look like if Qashio gets this mass adoption?
I think, first of all, for the clients that use Qashio, it will be much easier to conduct their business. It will be much more centralized with a single point of contact for, let's call it, your banking needs. So today, if you take a look at a business that might operate in 3-4 European countries, Saudi, UAE, which is not unusual at all, they will need to have banking partners in each one of these countries to be able to pay their bills. They might need to have different accounting firms to be able to submit their taxes and VAT. Now, if we can manage all of that in a single platform that then integrates into their global accounting system, we can remove a lot of admin work and also give clarity and reduce knowledge gap that you normally have when you enter into geographical expansion. So it will just make it easier for businesses from this region to expand outside of this region.
Yeah, to put it all into one place, they have a true sense of data. We've had some software installed just for part of our business, and the clarity of data has meant that you can grow so much faster just because you trust something and you can see through the weeds, if you will. Just a bit of advice from you. I'm looking for, someone who's listening to this, who might be looking for investment. They've got a fintech startup. Maybe they've got an idea, but they're a few steps behind you. What would your best bit of advice be to them to try and get their business to be adopted by those early adopters?
There's quite a lot of things to think about. I believe the most important thing is to have discipline and to be open to feedback. So to have discipline, you need to be able to wake up in the morning when it's tough and go and do what needs to be done. You shouldn't complain that you have to do all of the admin work. People really underestimate the amount of admin work you need to do in the early days because you cannot afford to hire your problems away. So that is something that is very important. And then really be open to feedback from those early adopters. I know it's said, if you believe in something, create a direction, and then everybody should adopt. You should have identified the market size and the need, but that's impossible because until you launch something, you won't get that feedback that is needed to improve what it is that you're launching. So these are the two main things. I have one third thing that I think is very important. Make sure that the early people that you bring on board are generalists, no specialists. Specialists are specialized in one thing. Generalists, they are restless type of individuals that want to do everything at once. And that's really what you need. You need an organized chaos in the early days of your startup.
I love it. I love that there's been a real theme through this conversation of people. You're clearly very passionate about people, helping solve their problem, but also within the business, helping them develop and grow. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you so much.